Hey everybody, Forever Retro 82 here. Hope you're staying safe and being well out there. So, the golden age of the arcade, 1977 to about 1984, when the crash happened. Now, unfortunately, when the crash happened, I was only 2 years old. And a lot of my experiences as a gamer started on the Atari 5200. However, that thing broke within like maybe a year or two of me and my father playing it together, and my mom playing some games as well. So most of my arcade experiences, that even before I knew they were even arcade titles to begin with, I had experience on the 2600. And today I would like to go ahead and showcase 5 of the ones I probably spent the most time with, and give of course, my wonderfully expert opinion on these said games. So sit back, relax, grab a beer, grab some food, whatever it is you want to do when you watch my videos. I don't masturbate if that's your thing. I mean, I don't know why you would do that. I think the cum would not be feeling all that great. But anyways, that's besides the point. Point is, yeah, I'd like to showcase basically 5 of these, and I'll give my expert opinion on how they compare to the arcade. So let's start with the first one. So this is Galaxian for the Atari 2600. It was released in the arcade in 1979, and the Atari port was made by Namco Limited, and it was published by Atari Corporation. Now, Galaxian is more or less a Space Invaders clone, because this was commonplace during this time frame. You're on your ship, and you just basically shoot a bunch of baddies, memorize their patterns, and work and get your high score. That's how most Atari games were back then, is just high score driven. Which is fine, but here's the thing. You can't save your high scores in old games, which is kind of pointless. But they did have contests, depending on the publisher, that if you get a high score, you take a picture of it, get it sent in, and you get a prize or some badge. Well, I know Activision gave badges. This is also, you know, for those who are interested, is the precursor to Galaga. This basically came out before Galaga. And once you clear screen, enemies repeat, or they come back on the screen, of course, and then, of course, it gets harder and harder as you go. This was a big hit in the arcade, and the Atari version, I think, is quite nice for what it is. It's missing the space backgrounds and the nice sounds that you had, but for an Atari game, this is definitely one of the higher quality ones. I used to play the piss out of this until I either it was time for me to go to bed. Fuck. Of course, I get dive bombed. That's the Galaxian's way of doing things. Yeah, I used to play the piss out of this a lot when I was younger, for like maybe an hour or 2 at a time, and I'd write down my high scores, like of each game I played. I would write it down. I had like a little notebook. I did that with a lot of Atari games back then. I had like 2 notebooks filled with my high scores, because I was in competition with my brother and of course friends of mine that came over that played Atari as well. So yeah, you just basically go every round and it gets harder and faster. That's what he said. And of course you get dive bombed if you're not careful, but for a port of an arcade game, this definitely fits the bill. It doesn't have the same, you know, flashiness as the arcade. I mean, come on, this is the Atari. It can't compete with that. But for the gameplay, it definitely has it in spades. And it's a lot of fun to play. I'm having fun playing it right now, even though it's repetitious as all hell, but that's fine by me. Because I remember when I first bought this, I got it at a bargain bin at Meijer back in 1990, I want to say. They were trying to get rid of their Atari stock, and this game was like $5 or something like that. I got it new in a box. I kind of wish I kept it sealed, because it's probably worth a lot more given the retro boom that refuses to die. I think most of us can agree it's getting obnoxious nowadays. Damn, I was hoping I could get past that. At least get one more round there. But yeah, it's like, I want to play again, but I'm not going to because I got a video to do. But yeah, Galaxian, a very wonderful Namco classic, and it definitely has the classic gameplay of the shooters during the time frame in spades. Now, the next game we're going to show caused a yen shortage in Japan in the arcade, and some of you probably already know what it is, but let's see how the Atari stacks up to that classic. This game showed a yen shortage in Japan, or gave Japan a yen shortage. This game was immensely popular over there, and it was popular enough over here to make some home ports. This is Space Invaders. It was developed and released and published, should I say, by Atari corporations through the blessings of Taito Corporation, because they were the brainchild behind this. Now, the difference between this and the arcade version, you had 55 different aliens, while this one only takes it down a notch with some compromises being made to 36. So, to play the basic game, it's as simple as it gets. You have your shields that block enemy fire, and then you have a cannon that shoots up at the aliens and take them out one by one. And they look a little different from the ones in the arcade as well. But, you know, this was Atari, so we had to have some compromises, of course. Let me see if I can get that UFO. Yes! I can't always do that, so when I do that, I actually get a little happy. It's a small celebration. I mean, there's not much celebration to be had when you do that. But it's as simple as it gets. You just go back and forth, and you basically just shoot the aliens, shoot the UFO if you can for some extra bonus points. And once again, you have a score, and you just basically just go back and forth and shoot aliens. It's as simple as that. I will tell you that when we get to this sound right here, my anxiety goes up a tremendous amount, to where I can't think straight. Gotcha. Now, if you flip the difficulty switches, you actually can make yourself easier to hit. For instance, if I turn my difficulty switch on, I'm fatter now. Okay? Kind of like I am in real life. You move slower, and you're easier to hit. Or you can go ahead and turn that off if you're like, oh, fuck that, and go back to just using your regular ship to shoot shit. And yes, if they get too low, they take away your shields, and then you're just a sitting duck. It's best to avoid that if you can. Damn it! Thought I was going to get that son of a bitch. I mean, why do they want to invade Earth? Earth is a shit show. Their planet is probably 100 million times better than our shithole is. Especially these days, my god. It's like, oh, fuck that. And that's as simple as it gets. That's Space Invaders. But what's interesting about this version, on the other hand, is the fact that there's different game variations. You have moving platforms. The other ones have you can tell the enemy fires a bunch of ziggly lines. You even have invisible invaders. If I select enough, there we go. They're gone. Imagine playing this shit, huh? I mean, sure, you can see them when you make contact with one, but it still doesn't make it any easier. This is actually very tough. I mean, if you're a major pro at, like, Space Invaders, this would be, like, the perfect mode for you, I would assume. Ah, fucker. Now, when I was a kid, I used to play this a decent amount. I thought this game was, like, hot shit, but, you know, I will admit, after a few rounds, even as a kid, it got boring really fast for me. I very much prefer Galaxian. Or even its older, or even its follow-up, which would be Galaga. Which I wish they could have made for the Atari 2600. I don't think it was possible, though. They could have made some kind of compromise port. Oh my god. I'm scared. I'm gonna lose. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Come on! No. And that's Space Invaders. Yeah, very simple, but back in the day, people plunked quarters into this in the arcade, and when it was released at home, everyone was like, oh, hell yeah, we can get the same experience. It's not the exact same experience. You know, compromises had to be made, you know, cuts had to be made, but for something that's from arcade to home, during this time frame, this was the best you could get. Some people hate this port, some people love this port. For me, I'm in the middle. I don't hate it, I don't love it. I just think it was a game that ate some time. I mean, I could maybe play this game for about 20 minutes, even back then, and then have my fill, move on to something else, because there's nothing to it. I mean, yeah, with most shooters, the same thing. With Galaxian, it's the same thing, but the thing about the difference between Space Invaders and Galaxian is the enemies swoop down at you, and they do it in such an aggressive way that you had to, like, think about it instead of just sitting there blindly shooting left and right. But you gotta understand, this was made in 1980. The arcade game was made in the 70s, so, you know, that was like the birth of the arcade. Games like this. So, people loved them, people ate them up, and put quarters in and played the shit out. That's just how it worked. So, for a game, for its time, as bare bones as it is, it still has its charm, and I'm pretty sure many Atari fan will appreciate this game for what it's worth. Like I said, I think it's okay. I'm in the middle between love and hate, because, like I said, it gets boring very fast. But considering how there's other arcade ports during the Golden Age that are better for the Atari 2600, I think we're going to move on to that. So, sit tight and relax. Holy hell, did I play the piss out of this game. This is another Namco release, or by Namco Limited, and it was published by Atari Corporation. This is Dig Dug. A very well-loved and renowned game that a lot of people have played during their youth. Now, what's amazing about this is, if you press the select button, see Teddy Bear? That makes it beginner mode, where you only fight one enemy at a time, and it doesn't get any harder. But, you know, we're not a bunch of pansies. We're not children anymore, so we're going to play it hardcore-like. So as you can see, it has a little dilly in the background. One of my favorite things in this game, in this version, particular version, is hitting the rocks against the enemies. Let me see if I can pull that off. I shouldn't have waited. All right, here we go. When I was a kid, I thought that was flatulence. I mean, it literally sounded like a fart. I would, like, sit there with the joystick in my hand just laughing out of control over it. He got away, but that's okay. You don't lose if they get away. But, you know, you're working for a high score, so... See, it plays just like the arcade version, just it looks better, that's all. The arcade version does. This version does not look very good at all. But it does the job. I mean, for 1983, I'm surprised in how competent this port really is. It's probably one of my favorite ports on the arcade. Excuse me, on the Atari. It's very playable, a lot of fun. It controls as it should. And it just gets harder and harder, and you rack up them points. I also like how the little dragons have the little demon faces. Shit. But it has all the music cues and everything. The dirt does not look like dirt, obviously. It looks like just a bunch of lines. Here we go again. When I was a kid, I loved that. Yeah, those blocks are rocks. Yeah, don't ask me. I didn't make it. They could have made circles. I mean, look at Jungle Hunt, man. Jungle Hunt, they had like something similar to boulders in the form of circles. That's another Taito game that was released on the Atari that was amazing. It's one of my favorites. I love that game. It was also known as Jungle King in different parts of the world. I think Europe. But yeah, as you can see, it's very, very simple. I mean, the arcade plays the same way. The arcade version is actually a little harder, I must agree with that. But you can just play until you die, you lose all 4 of your lives, and then, you know, write down your high score if you want to, since you can't save them. Alright, come here, punk. I'll give you what tag's coming to you, you asshole. Oh, that's cute. You think you're gonna get away from me? I don't think so, motherfucker. Yeah, the levels change up here a little bit here and there, too, as you can probably tell. Like, the enemies are placed differently, and a lot of them want to see you dead. That's the point of it. And, you know, I don't know the story behind Dig Dug. I wish I did, but... I mean, why is he doing this? What's the point? I mean, seriously, if I didn't know this was a port of an arcade game, I would seriously think that this is like a port of Blaster Master, or like the very first Blaster Master. I'm serious. Because, I mean, look at Dig Dug. He looks like Jason. A little bit in this suit. And you're shooting enemies. Lightning beams. This is basic, yeah, this is before, you know, they were able to make, like, really convincing killer level designs in video games. So, you know, you could probably make this into some kind of Blaster Master hack, or if you told me this was Blaster Master before Blaster Master, I would have believed you back in 83. I was 1 year old, but back when I first played it, which I believe was in 1988. I got my copy of this game at a place that sold pools. It was called K&B Toys and Pools. And they were getting rid of their Atari stock, too. And we got this for a really good price, new in box. It made me sad, though, because I remember one time I saw a copy of Abadox for the NES there. And at the time, I didn't have an NES because mine broke because reasons. And I really wanted to play it because I seen it in commercials and everything. It looked badass, and it wasn't until about 1992 that I was able to play Abadox for the very first time. And I remember a friend of mine made fun of it because he's like, "Oh, the cover looks dumb." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It looks fine. It looks like something from the 1980s. Like, I don't know, something from that time frame." And you know, sure enough, he listened to the first stage music, and he's like, "Oh," he was like, "Dude, this game has great fucking music." And I looked at it, I'm like, "Yeah, see what I mean? It was gonna have something in it you would like." But yeah, I would play this for probably a couple hours every time I was in the mood for some Dig Dug. Because as you can see, it's perfect pick up and play material. You don't really have to think. You just basically got to think of a strategy, figure out a strategy, and then carry it out. It's really that simple. 20,000 points gives you an extra life. I mean, I could sit here and play this like for a while. I really could. This game is just so much fun for me. And it was a lot of fun for other people because it was ported to a bunch of systems. But I think we're going to have to move on. We're going to have to move on to the next game. But yeah, you can... But if you pick the bear... Look at this. Only 2 enemies on the screen. It is perfect for kids if you want to get them started on Atari games. But, I mean, nowadays, you know, kids are playing iPads and shit. They don't really care for something like this. But back then, this was an easy way for anyone to pick up and play. I mean, it was a perfect for the time representation of the arcade that you were able to have in your home. And that's what it does. It basically resets the same 2 enemies over and over again. So that's Dig Dug. Fucking awesome game. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, I was having a lot of fun playing it, and I think you would too. And the Atari version is fucking fantastic. It's got, for its time, it's got great animation. The enemy sprites are pretty much on point to the arcade. It just doesn't look as fleshed out as the arcade because, well, it's the Atari, for fuck's sake. Basically the 2-bit system. But yeah, hats off to Dig Dug for the Atari 2600. An amazing arcade port. I love it to death. And if you guys are interested in Atari, or owning Atari cards, or if you're collecting for Atari, don't forget this one. This is a good one. It's fantastic. You'll have fun, and you may even lose track of time because it's just so addictive. Definitely recommended. Unfortunately, these last 2 games I'm going to show you are some of my low lights of my Atari games I used to play as a kid. This is Donkey Kong Jr. It was developed by Nintendo R&D 1, excuse me, and it was published by Coleco. Yes, there was a time where Nintendo actually licensed their games to be made on other systems before the Android market appeared. Where you have games like Super Mario Run and that Miitomo, rest in peace. Or rest in piss. I didn't really care for that app anyways. That being said, we're going to play a very... they tried, but I think the worst part about this is the sound design. The sound design will grate on your ears, so I do apologize. But I'm playing most of these games at a low volume, so it doesn't grate against your ears. Okay? So, here goes. Oh, that sound. Right, so you're Donkey Kong Jr. Mario has Donkey Kong captured, and you're basically the son of Donkey Kong, and you have to save him. Those little things right there, I don't know what they're called, forgive my ignorance. Those things are so cheap in this fucking version that... Oh, shit. No! I died. I used to laugh at that as a kid, but nowadays it just annoys me. There's 3 stages. which is all of them, obviously, because there was much more. I still think this fares better than Donkey Kong on the Atari 2600. But I didn't play that until much later. I mean, I didn't know this was a Nintendo game. I didn't know that this was an arcade game at all. I thought it was an original Atari release because I was an idiot. I mean, come on, I was a kid. That stage is beaten. We basically got 2 more stages. It's very, very short. Now, from what I understand, this is supposed to be... This is the last stage, and they screwed it up here. The last stage is the second stage in this game, and you have to use these keys to unlock Donkey Kong, and that's supposed to be the last stage before the game obviously repeats. They fucked it up here. But it's as easy as it gets. You put it down there, you get down, and then go grab some keys. It's very, very cut and dry, very simple. I still think it's funny how Donkey Kong moves as you move the key up. But these things can go fuck their mothers, man. When I was a kid, they got me so mad to the point where I wanted to break my cartridge. But it was one of the games I got for Christmas when I got my Atari, when I first got an Atari 2600. Because my father worked at this place called Michigan Middlecraft, and the guys there, they didn't get a bonus, and they knew my dad was under a lot of financial problems, because he was. I don't know too much into detail about it, I just know he was. And a lot of the guys chipped in and made sure that we got a decent Christmas that year. And I wish I knew who all they were, because I thanked them for that. Unfortunately, that company went bust 2 years later, and my dad had to find a job somewhere else, doing basically what he was doing there, which was he was doing metal press work. And yeah, so this was one of the games we got with it. We got this, Jungle Hunt, and a few other titles, and and the rest is history. So I liked this when I was a kid. Do I like it now? Not really. It's not a bad port. It's just the sound doesn't. First of all, the sound design is ear grating. I don't think anyone could listen to this game and actually be like, "Man, these are some dope sounds for the Atari." I'd call you a fucking idiot if you were to think that. It's not all that. It's not all that faithful to the source material. Shit. I need to at least beat. I need to beat this, and I will. Well, as you see in the second round, it gets even worse. It's like, dude, get off me. Oh, come on. Shit. Alright, and then your game's over. But if you press start or reset on the controller, you start a new game. I want to do this at least once. I'm going to try that. Oh, but that sound. Just get it off me. Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't think this is the worst version of Donkey Kong Jr. that could be out there, but this is pretty bad. I can tell you the worst version of Donkey Kong is, though, the DOS version. Don't ever play that. If you have any respect for Donkey Kong, any whatsoever, do not play the DOS version. It is absolutely mind-boggling. Like, I don't know how they fucked something so simple up that bad when the Atari actually did it half-assed in comparison. Let's just put it this way, it doesn't look as bad. Like, the barrels look like cookies. They do literally look like chocolate chip cookies instead of barrels. You could say that's just, you know, the mentality of a fat man. It's not true. Play the game yourself, and you will know it looks like chocolate chip cookies. Go away, you fuckface. I got a key to put. I gotta go free my pot. God damn it. Come on, man. I hate those fucking things. Ugh. It's like some childhood PTSD is all starting to rear its head. Those things used to piss me off so bad. Because they're just annoying as fuck, and they don't go away. See how they linger? Or sometimes they don't linger? It's like you can't tell. Just fuck off with you. Fuck off with you! Fuck off with their head! Just get your ass up there. There we go. See, they disappear sometimes, and sometimes they stay around. They're trolls, man, I'm telling you. It's like, ha! Got them. Alright, if I don't do it this time, that's fine. Because, I mean, this is where the game ends anyways. And I'll be honest, when I was a kid, this part used to fuck me up in so many ways. I could never get past it. Never. Fuck! So close. You just gotta, I guess, basically hurry your ass. Shit. No, I fucked that up. Ah, fuck. Okay. Alright, come on. We can do this. Move! Oh my god. Nope, I fucked it up, I think. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. This is promising. I think I got it. Yes! Well, then it just repeats. Yep, there you go. So that's Donkey Kong Jr. The sound is very bad. The controls are fine for the Atari. I mean, for what it is. I mean, you got a joystick and a button. And it does the job. Unfortunately, there's not many variations here. It does up the difficulty. And, of course, if you get up to 2, that's 2 players. But it's alternating play, so it's absolutely pointless. I always thought 2-player games where you had to alternate both on the NES and Atari were pointless. But it just ups the difficulty. Enemies are faster. And I mean, there's no change if you win the 3 stages. I mean, that's how Atari was, though. You got basically higher forms of difficulty that would just make the enemies faster, and you have little time to react. It's complete bullshit. But I'll give Coleco some credit, though. For what the Atari was able to do, they did this okay. It's just the sound design is bad, and they fucked up the level order. Other than that, it's okay, but I can't recommend it because there are easier, more enjoyable ways to play Donkey Kong Jr. Not just Jr., but the original Donkey Kong as well. And I saved the worst of the worst for last. Something I never got a chance to play the original arcade coin-op until way later in life. Probably, I had to have been 9 years old till I finally was able to play the original source material. But the material I'm about to show is something that nightmares are made of. Oh my gentle Jesus, we're really going there, huh? Unfortunately, this was my very first exposure to Pac-Man. I wish I was kidding. I never played the arcade game until this point. I apologize for the pausing. Basically, I'm going to pause, though, because there's a little story to be had with this game. Okay, there's plenty of story. It's an odd one, and I also like little weird stories like these because they're amazing in their own right. Okay, so this game was published and developed by Atari Corporation under the blessing of Namco. Namco had no part in this except handing the license over to Atari and said, "Hey guys, you go ahead and make Pac-Man on your system." And Atari was like, "Yay, we can sell a bunch of copies and make our system on the map and make it amazing." And you know what? At first, it was true. In fact, it stands as the best-selling Atari game. This piece of shit sold literally 8 million copies. 8 million! I mean, you can find them everywhere now in resale shops and everywhere. It does not resemble the original game, except maybe, I mean, it's maze-like. But it does not have the sound design. It doesn't have the memorable gameplay. It doesn't even have the fruit, for fuck's sake. It's a block. It literally is a square. It's not shaped like a fruit at all. The programmer was Todd Fry, or Fry, excuse me. Yeah, Todd Fry. And he was not provided with any arcade design specifications to work with at all. He spent 80 hours a week over 6 months developing this piece of shit. Now, I admire Todd for stepping in and trying to make something that he knew what, not fuck all about, and tried to make it a sellable product. And obviously it was. It sold 8 million copies. But it's like, you know, I'm trying to keep a straight face. I'm trying to have some form of professionalism. I can't! This is, like, the epitome of bad. I mean, everyone shits on E.T., and rightfully so. I mean, but goddamn, that game was only... Scott Warshaw was only given, like, what, 6 weeks to develop that piece of shit? And they made a shit ton of copies. Some sold, and then some took it back because they're like, what the fuck do you do in this game? It tells you in instruction about, like, what you have to do, and it's doable, but it's not fun. And that was the key word back during that time frame, is make a product that is fun. E.T. was not. Now, this game has some fun factor, but not in a traditional sense of what... It's definitely not Pac-Man. It's definitely not Pac-Man. At least, only in name, perhaps, but as in source material, oh, fuck no, this is not Pac-Man. Now, I gotta, of course, I went ahead and I stalled as much time as I can. I suppose I gotta play a couple levels. I mean, just look, you can look at it here. But it is one of those Atari games, you don't have to press reset to start. You just press the button, and it starts for you. See? Oh, just... that sound. The look. I mean, come on. I mean, I get, you know, Tom Fry had no idea what he was working with or what he was creating. He just basically... It's the same sound you hear him beat him eating when you blow a load. See, there's your fruit. It's a fucking block! Wow. How is that even considered a fucking fruit is beyond me. The Atari had some sprite abilities. I mean, fuck me, Pac-Man, even though he's not a perfect circle, is moving his mouth. It sort of resembles Pac-Man. I want to know what the fuck went on in their head when it comes to sound design. It sounds like someone hiccuping. This abomination sold 8 million copies. I still, to this very day, in all my 39 years of life, can't understand how a clusterfuck like this that came out in March of 1982, 1 month before I was born, was able to sell 8 million fucking copies. It barely at all resembles any of the source material. That blinking hurts my eyes of the ghost, first of all, and why does it take forever for you to transport from one place to the other? It's bullshit. Okay, we're gonna at least beat a level. I want to beat at least 2 for this. I don't know why I'm aiming for high score. It doesn't fucking matter. The sad thing is, too, when I was a kid, I'm like, I love Pac-Man and the Atari. It's fun. You know, it's like, I want to go back in time where that little kid, the younger Forever Richard 82 was alive and beat the living shit out of him. For liking this piece of shit. It's hard to concentrate on a game that sucks. There's literally nothing good about this anymore. I mean, now you can play, like, Pac-Man for free on Android. I mean, with ads, of course, but you can play the original arcade game, and you can use Bluetooth controllers, too. And it plays, like, light years and trillion times better than this shit. There are many different ways you can play Pac-Man now. I mean, there's even emulated versions on other games like Pac-Man World 2 and I think the first one. There's the Namco Museum games. I mean, come on, there is a shit ton of other ways to be playing Pac-Man. Even if you collect for Atari, if you don't have this, don't waste your money on this. You're doing yourself a disservice in doing so, because there is literally nothing good about this. Nothing. The sound design is off. Fruit is literally a block. I mean, come on. I know in Adventure you were a block, and you were supposed to be a knight with awesome armor and ready to kick duck dragons' asses and have good times, right? I get that. I sincerely get that. Fuck off. I should at least beat this level, for fuck's sake. I don't have much... See, I don't even remember the ghosts in the original arcade game are not this hard. At least, no, they weren't this hard. I play Pac-Man on the arcade plenty. Get that. There we go. And all it does is just reset, and then you do it all again. Oh boy, isn't this fucking fun? I want to see fucking Billy Mitchell beat this shit. Yes, I know he's a cheater, but he also had some merit to his cheating abilities. I mean, if you watch, people say if you watch him playing fuck me. If you watch him play Pac-Man in like real life, they say it's actually a really awesome thing to behold. I mean, he used MAME, so sue him. I don't know. I still like the guy. I know he's a cheater, but who cares? There's so many people I know that cheat at video games. It's not even funny. Me being one of them. When I'm fucking super buzzed off alcohol, I have to save state because my concentration is completely gone. That's the problem with alcohol, though. It kills your concentration. No, what? Okay, I think that's a good place to stop with this goddamn game. 8 million copies on a 4 kilobyte cartridge. Yeah, this was definitely an amazing fucking game. No, it wasn't. I guess for the time, it was... I mean, obviously, it was something. When I played the original, finally, at 9 years old, I literally was like, my childhood lied to me. I was literally in a state of bewilderment. I could not grasp just the difference between the two. I mean, obviously, people who were born before I was got to play the original arcade game, so they had something to compare it to. But I didn't. This was what I thought Pac-Man was, and I'm sitting there thinking, how was this popular? Well, not necessarily, because, you know, I was a young little shit that didn't know shit from Shinola. I mean, I was not aware of how this original source material stacked up to this. I thought this is how Pac-Man was supposed to be played. Like I said, all these games that had Atari, all these games, I did not know had arcade games. They were based off arcade games until much later in life, from like ages 9 above. And I finally got a chance to play most of them. Like Burger Time, I didn't know that was an arcade port for, Nintendo. Well, I kind of did. And the reason how I know that was because when we got Burger Time for the NES when we were kids, you know, I'm like, I've seen this game before. And I remember laying in bed that night, and that's when I remembered, oh my god, that little arcade at the flea market. Or that little, if you want to call it an arcade, there was RBI Baseball and Burger Time. But yeah, I'm like, I didn't know how it all worked back then. So, Pac-Man, guys, Pac-Man. Some of you probably have great nostalgia for it. And that's fine. I'm not going to rip on you. I mean, shit, I thought this was a good game when I was a fucking kid, but I didn't know any better. But time is a funny thing, fellas. Time is definitely a funny thing. It can either bring you joy or it can bring you pain. This is definitely... Anyway, I talked way too much about Pac-Man, so that's it. Yeah, so that's the arcade ports on the Atari 2600, the ones I played the most and the ones I didn't even know had arcade. They were based on arcade games. I didn't know this until like after 9 years old. But after 9 years old, I actually had an arcade game that was within walking distance, and I seen these games, and I really honestly did not know they were based off of arcade games. I mean, I've heard from word from mouth and all of that, but I didn't have an access to an arcade to go to until I was 9 years old. And then once I was able to go to the arcade, I actually finally able to play the source material and seeing just how much different they were. Of course, the coin-op versions are going to be better because the Atari was a simple system that did simple things. But for the time frame it was released back in 1977, it was a milestone for gamers and gaming in general. You actually had a system that you can pop in cartridges in, turn on, turn off, and have people play with you. And they also had like different peripherals that were pretty cool, like the paddle controllers. The little thing that was now you played Breakout and Super Breakout and a few other games. A Night Driver, Kaboom. Kaboom is an amazing game. That game is, you get like in a zen mode when you play that. Once you get like used to the paddle control and you just stare at the screen, you can literally just go blank and you have muscle memory take over. It's amazing. But anyways, that being said, yeah, I did not know any of these games were arcade games until much later. And my final thoughts on them is Galaxian is fantastic on the Atari 2600. Now, a lot of people, I mean, obviously it's limited compared to now, and definitely compared to its sequel, which was Galaga. But Galaxian still has its place in history as one of Namco's most successful shooters out there, space shooters that they released during the golden age of the arcade. And the Atari ported it over pretty damn well. I mean, it was a late release, though. The arcade was released in 1979, and that port was released in 1983. So the game was only like 3-4 years old at that time. But obviously the interest was still there because they made a port. Then you had Space Invaders, which like I said, I don't hate it. I'm in the middle between hate and love but I really don't hate it. It just gets boring very fast. Even the arcade game. It's not the fault of the Atari, it's the fault of the franchise. I mean, the source material at the time, the Japanese loved the hell out of it. It caused a yen shortage, for fuck's sake, and it was very popular. All the arcades in Japan, Space Invaders was a must-have. And, rightfully so if you like that sort of game. It's very simple. It's an easy pick-up-and-play game. My wife had a Space Invaders arcade machine when she was growing up. And she also had, I believe, Seawolf. No, I take that back. That was my other friend. Back in the day. My wife also had Battlezone. So she had Space Invaders and Battlezone. I mean, Battlezone's awesome in the arcade. I don't know if any of you have ever played it. If you haven't, if you have an arcade that has old games from that time frame and they have Battlezone, you should play it. It's really cool. The controls take a little bit getting used to, but it's a lot of fun. And if you don't, there's MAME, there's compilations all over the place of Battlezone, and it's damn worth your time. I still remember playing Battlezone in the arcade version through, I think it was a 1995 release, Windows 95 release of some arcade compilation. I don't remember the name of it, forgive me for my ignorance, but it was like a compilation that had a bunch of Atari games and stuff. There was like, not Atari 2600, but like arcade games. It was really cool, and one of them was, there was Asteroids, Battlezone, and a few other games. Yeah, I finally got to play it at a friend's computer, and I thought it was really fun. But then I finally got to play the actual arcade version at a GameWorks in Novi, Michigan, I believe, back before they, I mean, they're closed now, obviously. All arcades are pretty much gone, except for a few of those who can keep themselves relevant. It was amazing, but the controls was just so hard to work, but once I got the hang of it, it was a lot of fun. And apparently they used Battlezone at the time for army training and whatnot for people that are going to be tank operators. I think that's a pretty nifty thing, so I can't say video games haven't helped mankind in some way. Anyways, I'm getting way off track. Dig Dug on the Atari 2600. I will go as far as saying that's a fucking masterpiece. Because all the enemies look the part. Yeah, the stones are blocks. I mean, obviously there's cutbacks in graphics and some sacrifices had to be made due to the limited hardware. But the gameplay is intact. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, you guys saw the video of me just, I was having a blast. I could have kept playing, but I didn't. I knew I had to move on. I really love Dig Dug. It's probably my favorite video, or probably favorite game on the list. Second being Galaxian. That was really fun too. I could have kept playing that as well. Donkey Kong Jr. now, on the other hand, Donkey Kong Jr. It's competent enough. I mean, they fucked up the level order, and I'm willing to forego that. It's just the sound design. I mean, in some of the graphic design, like for instance, when you go in between the vines, why does he look like a fucking duck? I look at that and I'm like, why the hell does he look like a duck? He's supposed to be an ape, for fuck's sake, and he's supposed to save his dad. I mean, if you walked up to his father with that fucking duck face, I'm pretty sure Donkey Kong would be like, "You're no son of mine," But I don't know if that was an intentional fuck up or it was just a fuck up on their part, but whatever. I'm willing to forego that too, but it does kind of, it's weird. It's like, why does he look like an ape? He looks fine, but then he goes in between shit and he looks like a duck. It doesn't make sense. And the sound design is just grating on your ears. It's a game you have to play at low volume to enjoy it. But it's fun, it's competent, it's not horrible, but it's not very good either. But say that was the only way I had. That was the only way I could play Donkey Kong Jr. I didn't have an NES at the time, and it's just, you know, when I finally played it on the NES, it's like, wow, there's a huge difference. I mean, not with the graphical fidelity, yes, but it's more or less not just the graphical aspect of it. It's just the overall presentation, which Coleco kind of, well, I can't, yeah, no, it's Nintendo. Nintendo made it. R&D won. They made that game for the Atari, and Coleco published it. So Nintendo fucked that up. I don't know. I wish I can give you guys a better think and feel of my opinion on that. It's not bad though. It's not horrible. Like, if I was collecting Atari games still and I didn't have that, I would collect it. I'd pick it up. Pac-Man, on the other hand, hell fucking no. Everyone talks about how bad E.T. was, and E.T. was horrible. It really was, because it was just hard. But I don't think it's the worst Atari game ever made. No. There's this game called Star Fox on the Atari. Not the same Star Fox you guys know, but it's a game where you're on a plane and you shoot, and it, like, every time you turn, the screen would pan, and it's just, the enemies fly in like erratic patterns. They're not, you can't even, it's hard to even make a kill. I believe that was made by Mythicon, the same guys that made Wizard. Wizard is also a horrible game. The music in there is so grating that you would really want to rip your eardrums out of your fucking skull. Because it's literally, forgive me, I'm going to try very much to emulate the sound it makes. Or the music it makes. And it goes on and on and on. That hurt my fucking larynx. Ugh. Let's never do that again. Don't ever play that either. It's terrible. But the Pac-Man, though, Pac-Man was really bad. It sold 8 million copies. It was made, I mean, but, you know, I gotta kind of forgive them a little bit. It was made by a guy who had absolutely no experience with arcade architecture or ports or anything of that nature. Okay, there's a rumor between my friends. I can't confirm this because I can't find anything, but according to them, the rumor is Todd Fryer actually hated Pac-Man, and he made it purposely bad because he hated it that much. Now, that could be true, since he didn't know what the fuck he was doing, and they, like, handed him off. Atari just said, oh, here's Pac-Man, we need this done. But they had him on a hellish work week, man. 80 hours for 6 months? I'm surprised the guy didn't die of a heart attack or have a stroke or something, because that's too much work, man. That's like Japanese-style workload right there. Man, poor guy. His efforts did pay off. It did pay. It gave Atari plenty of money. But Atari was dumb for some reasons, because they constantly threw away money on prototypes and new hardware. And a lot of this new hardware never even came to be. They just made prototypes. They were just throwing money around. They're like, oh, we're going to make something better than this. A year after they just released something else. I didn't understand that mindset of theirs. That's probably why they don't make fucking consoles anymore. Well, they have the Atari VCS, but that's not the same guys that were in charge of the 1970s and 80s Atari. Totally new people. So my final thoughts are, Atari 2600, while it was a very limited system in terms of technology, there's some of the games on there were extremely fucking fun to where you can just get lost in them. I mean, there's a whole list of games I love for the Atari that I still play today. And it's very limited. And also the cartridges go for a very low price. Some of the games, some of the highlighted games that a lot of, you can thank YouTubers for that, like the popular ones. You know, they put certain games on a pedestal and the price gets jacked up. It's stupid. I hate when they fucking do that. But Atari games usually go for pretty cheap. And if you go to, like, say, like, flea markets, resale shops, they don't really go for that much. Sometimes you can even get them in packs. And they still make Atari 2600 games. A lot of people make hacks. Matter of fact, there's a hack of Pac-Man called Pac-Man Arcade. I suggest you all check that out, and you'll see it's a hack of Miss Pac-Man, but it's hacked to be in a way to play just like if Pac-Man was actually, if they had some love and somebody that knew what they were doing into it. It's a really fantastic hack. I suggest looking into it. But I think with all that being said, I am Forever Rich 82. I am signing off for now. I mean, the Atari 2600, it's a legendary system, and it has its place in history as one of the first video game consoles to be successful and wonderful at the same time. It had its fair share of arcade ports, but it also has some original software that were a lot of fun and holds near and dear to some of our hearts out there. Now, granted, there's a lot of shovelware on the Atari 2600. I am well aware of that. But I still think even the shovel list of shovelware on the Atari 2600 beats the living pants out of all the shovelware that was released on the Wii. I am dead serious about that. But, is there any games you guys played for the Atari 2600 that was an arcade game and you didn't know it? Do you have a favorite port of an arcade game that was released on the Atari 2600? What do you like about the 2600, if anything at all? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments below. But until next time, guys, I am Forever Trade 2. I am signing off. You guys have a good one and take good care of yourselves. Bye now.
Thank you for watching my video. If you liked what you saw and would like to support my channel, please consider being a patron. I'll put your name up with these fine folks who have donated to this channel, and that would be awesome to have you on board. If not, that's entirely up to you. I hope you have a good day and take care.